Welcome to the world latest news live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television. But first, let's begin with the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq greets the President of Turkey on his country's 98th anniversary of the Republic's declaration and sends a cabal of condolences to the President of South Korea on the death of former Korean President Roh Tae-woo. The COVID-19 Supreme Committee approves giving the third dose of the vaccine to some categories, agrees to vaccinate children from the age of 5 till 12, and decides to return of students from grade 5 to 11 through the direct learning system in all schools. And the Ministerial Committee on Tropical Cyclone Damage Evaluation decides to defer the payment of residential loans from the Minister of Housing and Urban Planning for 6 months. I'm Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubi'i presenting tonight's news bulletin. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of greetings to His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey on his country's 98th anniversary of the Declaration of the Republic. His Majesty the Sultan sends a cabal of condolences to His Excellency President Moon Jae-in of South Korea on the death of former Korean President Roh Tae-woo. The Supreme Committee on COVID-19 held a meeting today to discuss the latest updates on coronavirus measures and decisions. The committee reviewed the local and international epidemiological situation, which revealed that the pandemic is still spreading and an accelerated increase in the rate of infection is registered in a number of countries. Despite the stable epidemiological situation in the Sultanate of Oman, some members of the community are not abiding to the controls adopted by the concerned authorities, such as holding social events like weddings, funerals in mosques and public halls without having 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, not wearing masks or maintaining physical distance or the capacity set for the venue. These may result in imposing different preventive measures such as banning and closing activities and events. Therefore, the Supreme Committee stresses on the necessity of observing all decisions and not to neglect following the preventive measures. Stemming from its keenness on enhancing the level of protection from the most COVID-19 vulnerable categories, the committee approved giving the third dose of the vaccine to some categories. The Minister of Health will announce the targeted categories and approved a plan in this regard. The committee also agreed to vaccinate children from the age of 5 till 12, starting from the 1st of November 2021. The Supreme Committee decided the return of students from grade 5 to 11 through the direct learning system in all schools starting from 1st of November 2021, while adhering to precautionary measures and wearing face masks. The situation will be evaluated in accordance with the latest epidemiological developments in the country. The committee also decided to allow selling goods in traditional markets, including auctions, habtos, and selling in public places, while adhering to wearing face masks and avoiding crowding in such locations and keeping physical distance. The meeting was held in the Ministry of Interior and was chaired by His Excellency Sayyid Hamoud bin Faisal Al Busaidi, Minister of Interior. It was attended by their excellencies members of the committee. The Ministerial Committee on Shaheen Damage Evaluation decided to defer the residential loan payments for 6 months from the Minister of Housing and Urban Planning for citizens in the wilayas of Masuna, Suwaiq, Al-Khabura and Saham, whose houses were damaged by the tropical cyclone. The committee reviewed the proposal submitted by the Ministry on the land properties and the Wadi passages. The Ministry proposal includes remedies to reverse the impact and drafting unified maps that show the geography of the Sultanate, including the Wadi routes and boundaries, in order to circulate them to all relevant government institutions to act accordingly, complete the emergency readiness system and avoid potential risks. The committee instructed to review all existing residential plots and undistributed land schemes in the affected wilayat, stop assigning land plots in hazardous areas, accelerate the rehabilitate wadi pathways, clean wadis, construct new drainage system and the necessary protection at banks of the wadis to minimize the risk of floods, and assign each relevant authority its respective role, and ultimately share the experience to all wilayas of the Oman in the coastal areas. The committee awarded the maintenance works for 8 dams and 55 villages. More repair works will be awarded later. His Excellency Sheikh Rashid bin Ahmed Al-Shamsi and the Secretary of the Minister of Social Development said that the field survey of houses impacted by the tropical cyclone reached 97%, while pointing that urgent need payment for houses completely impacted by the tropical cyclone continues unaffected. His Excellency added that we hope that the teams in the field will complete their works by next Sunday. He also said that a link will be generated for house owners in the impacted areas to report any house damaged but not surveyed or visited yet. His Excellency General Sultan bin Mohammed Al Nu'mani, Minister of Royal Office, received Air Marshal Martin Sampson's UK Defence Senior Advisor to the Middle East and North Africa. His Excellency the Minister of Royal Office welcomed the guest, who in return expressed his gratitude towards the Sultanate of Oman for its role in enhancing cooperation to achieve the joint interest. During the meeting, they reviewed a number of matters of common concern and historical relations binding the Sultanate of Oman and the United Kingdom. Vice Admiral Abdullah bin Khamisa Risi, Chief of Staff of the Sultan's Armed Forces, received Air Marshal Martin Sampson's UK Defence Senior Advisor to the Middle East and North Africa. During the meeting, aspects of existing military cooperation between both countries were reviewed. They also exchanged points of views on a number of matters of common concern. Rear Admiral Saif bin Nasser Al-Rahbi, Commander of Royal Navy of Oman, received Air Marshal Martin Sampson's UK Defence Senior Advisor to the Middle East and North Africa. The meeting focused on a number of matters of common concern, in addition to exchanging points of views on various topics that serve the interest of both countries. Air Vice Marshal Khamis bin Hamad Al Ghafri, Commander of Royal Air Force of Oman, received Air Marshal Martin Sampson's UK Defence Senior Advisor to the Middle East and North Africa. During the meeting, they discussed a number of matters of common concern and exchanged points of views. Air Vice Marshal Engineer Saleh bin Yahya Al-Maskari, Commandant of National Defense College, received His Excellency Bastien Louchaud, a member of the French National Assembly for Saint-Denis. Both parties discussed matters of common interest and exchanged casual talks. The Municipal Council in the Governorate of Dhofar discussed during its meeting today a number of topics related to development of services in various wilayas of the Governorate. The meeting reviewed recommendations to establish and re-qualify some roads east and west of the wilaya of Dhalkut to facilitate the traffic movement, in addition to a proposal to study some industrial sites in the wilaya of Shalim and Halaniyat Islands and provide them with services and facilities. The Council also discussed discussed a recommendation for the organization of expatriate manpower in residential districts and their legal status through a proposal to establish labor cities. The meeting was chaired by His Excellency Sayyid Mohammed bin Sultan Al Busaidi, Minister of State and Governor of Muscat and Chairman of the Municipal Council. The Municipal Council in the Governorate of South Al-Batina discussed during their meeting existing efforts to establish dumping areas in the wilayas of the Governorate. It also reviewed solutions for Al-Misfah Junction in the wilaya of Rostaq after some traffic accidents at the place. It also dealt with existing voluntary efforts being exerted by voluntary teams after Tropical Cyclone Shaheen. The Council also discussed replays from some government bodies related to development and services projects. The meeting was chaired by His Excellency Sheikh Isa bin Hamad Al-Azri, Governor of South Al-Batina. The Public Authority for Small and Medium Enterprises Development revealed during a press conference the details of the annual Gulf Forum for Entrepreneurship 2021, which will be held during the period from 8th till 11th of November. The forum, titled Future Horizons for Entrepreneurship in Arab Gulf Cooperation Council countries, aims to encourage small and medium enterprises for expansion and investments in the GCC countries and highlight successful entrepreneurship examples, in addition to exchanging expertise among those working in developing this sector and discussing its challenges, its available opportunities as well. The Minister of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation, represented by Mawarid Center, held a scientific discussion sessions on the importance of plant gene banks. More details in the following report.
Local plants are a significant resource for improving crop production, yet they are in a state of severe decline due to many reasons, such as environmental degradation, erosion of vegetation cover, and climate change. Hence, the first discussion session of the Science Café focused on the importance of plant gene banks as one of the fundamental methods used in preserving seeds of plant species for periods extending to hundreds of years.
There are several factors that are impacting the plant diversity in the country, including climate change. The climate change may affect the physiology of the plants, so it may not produce sufficient seed or to reproduce for multiplication. The second thing could be the urbanization. Urbanization may impact distribution of these plants, so we need necessarily good planning when we are going to urbanize our areas, so these hot spots of plants will not go out, will not decline. And the third impact, which is also very important, which is I think the most important one, is the what they call it overgrazing by the livestock. So it is very important for us to study what the proper environment required for this plant to stay in its nature. If we are facing or we are thinking that this plant may have a problem to exist in the nature, then we need to keep it in the gene bank.
The scientific session reviewed the tireless efforts made by specialists in the gene banks in the Sultanate of Oman to study the seeds of Omani plants and trees for their genetic sustainability.
The Oman Botanic Garden is one of the unique projects in the Middle East. It's about conserving the biodiversity, plant biodiversity of Oman, and this is translation of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos and his vision to conserve environment and the traditional knowledge of plants for the Omani people. So it is building this knowledge for plants and for people also. Oman is like the rest of the world. We have been going through climate change, through major development from building roads, many of the construction, and also from any natural disaster that could happen for our environment. So we are losing our plant in for different reasons. In order to conserve this, we are building the Oman Botanic Garden. It's to conserve the diversity of this plant, building a gene bank, building a knowledgeable team that can really help in building and having full strategy in how to conserve this plant for the future.
The laboratory, which is under supervision of Ministry of Agriculture, and we have in that laboratories two sections. One section is a chemistry section, and the other section is the biology section. Okay. This is two sections. In biology section, we do seed testing, we do the plant testing, we do the food testing also, whatever related to plant health or animal health.
The seeds in the Omani gene banks are a vital and irreplaceable resource that must be preserved to provide future agricultural options in a world facing a major climate change. Plant gene banks do not only provide a safe haven for plant species from extinction, but they also help scientists in their research endeavors to conserve the knowledge heritage of plants and revitalize vegetation. صالح وخلفان الرحبي, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat.
Indeed, the scientific session is well discussed there. Still to come in our news bulletin. In Spain, lava and smoke still bubble up from the volcano in the island of La Palma. Once again, welcome to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi today said that the unity and centrality of Asian Association of Southeast Asian Nations has been an important priority for India. He made the remarks while addressing the Indian ASEAN summit virtually. Modi added that mutual cooperation in the times of COVID-19 will continue to strengthen the Indian-ASEAN relations in future. Brunei, which currently leads the 10-nation bloc, is hosting the three-day meetings by video due to continuing coronavirus concern. The summit was opened on Monday by Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah. The meetings have been clouded by a diplomatic standoff after military-ruled Myanmar skipped the summit in protest of ASEAN's move to bar Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, whose forces seized power in February, from attending. U.S. climate envoy John Kerry today, during a speech he gave at the London School of Economics, said that the stakes could not be higher as world leaders prepare to gather for the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, Scotland next week. He further said,
let's be clear. The time for debating the causes of climate change is long over. And the time for action is also long overdue. And needless to say, the stakes could not be higher. Now, I had the privilege of being in Rio, 1992, for the very first Earth Summit, which created the COP process itself. The journey from Rio to Kyoto to Paris and now Glasgow has taught me many things, folks. But above all, it has taught me that success in the climate fight is defined not by words alone, but by actions that they inspire. Addressing the climate crisis is the only choice. And in every way, the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of action. But now, we must significantly accelerate our efforts. That is a judgment not of me or President Biden or of anybody in politics. It's the judgment of the best science and mathematics. That's what this is about. Not ideology, not politics. It's about mathematics and physics. Devastating consequences await us if global temperature rises above 1.5 degrees or even continues on the track it's been on until we've put forward new plans. Devastating consequences follow if we exceed the 1.5 degrees, and we are now already just about at 1.2. The United States is fully and deeply invested in accelerating our efforts while there is still time. President Biden has initiated an all-of-government effort to meet this challenge. Every department, every agency, every cabinet official is at the table. The president knows, and you know, that we're no longer talking about impacts in the future. We no longer need scientists to tell us what will happen because we're seeing it happen now already. Remember that Mother Nature only has one measure of how much emissions are in our atmosphere. She doesn't measure whether it's US, China, or Russia, or Mexico, Brazil, whatever. It's just atmospheric. It's there. Every ounce matters. Every tenth of a degree of temperature matters.
That was U.S. climate envoy John Kerry. The search and rescue ship Geo Barents docked last night in the port of Palermo, allowing 367 migrants who were saved at sea to disembark. The migrants, including 172 minors, were plucked from the various wooden boats and inns over the past week as they tried to cross the Mediterranean from Libya. Medicines Sans Frontiers, which runs the Geo Barents, said that they faced rough sea and high winds, and they brought the migrants on board. According to the Italian Interior Ministry, as of today, 53,189 migrants have arrived in Italy, compared to roughly half that number by the same date in 2020, which was 27,190. This year, at least 1,299 migrants have died for or gone missing trying to reach Europe, according to data gathered by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Now, an erupting volcano in the Spanish island of La Palma continued to emit vast amounts of magma gases and ash today after 2 days of intense seismic activity and more than 5 weeks since it erupted. Concern about air quality raised in La Palma as tests reflect an increase in sulfur dioxide values in the west of the island, ranging between 6,000 and 9,000 tons per day. More than 100 earthquakes were registered by the National Geographic Institute today. High columns of volcanic material reached almost 2,000 feet yesterday. Flows of molten rock from the Cumbre Vieja volcano itself have caused the evacuations of about 7,500 people and destroyed more than 2,000 buildings, mostly homes. The rivers of lava cover over 900 hectares of mostly farmland. No deaths have resulted from the eruption other than in an area on the island's western side. Life continues as normal for La Palma's 85,000 residents, except for having to clean up volcanic ash. The last eruption on the island in 1971 lasted 24 days. It longest in the 1949 lasted 47 days. The current activity is on day 39. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television, and to conclude this news bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq greets the President of Turkey on his country's 98th anniversary of the Republic's declaration and sends a cabal of condolences to the President of South Korea on the death of former Korean President Roh Tae-woo. The COVID-19 Supreme Committee approves giving the third dose of the vaccine of some categories, agrees to vaccinate children from the age of 5 till 12, and decides return of students from grade 5 to 11 through direct learning system in all schools. And the Ministerial Committee on Tropical Cyclone Damage Evaluation decides to defer the payment of residential loans from the Minister of Housing and Urban Planning for 6 months. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin brought to you live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman Television. From me, Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubi' and the entire news team here in the studio and the newsroom, we thank you for joining us, wish you a pleasant evening, and of course, a very, very good night.